Good. So, for the people who are watching that might not know you, you want to give a little introduction to yourself?
Sure. So my name is James Merrill. We've been going to Fairview Village Church since 2013. So I am married to Melissa, and we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary last year. So that's pretty amazing. Yeah. Goes fast. We have 3 children. So my oldest, Bryce, is 25. He lives out in Pittsburgh, and he works as a mechanical engineer out there. And then our middle son, Luke, is 21, and he's at home with us right now. He's been dabbling in some commercial fishing, still trying to find his direction a little bit.
Awesome.
So, but he's with us, and we're enjoying having him at home.
Yeah.
And then my youngest, Haven, just started college this year, so she just went back to the University of New Hampshire on Sunday, doing her second semester there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for the introduction. So I guess the first question is, how did you come to know Jesus, and what has he done in your life?
Yeah. So I was in high school, and I grew up in a church-going family, but it was kind of a Sunday thing. And then in high school, I started dating this girl, and she asked me if I had been saved, and I said, "Saved from what?" I had no idea what she was talking about. So she kind of explained, what it really meant to be a Christian, and so I started learning about it from her then, and it didn't really sink in until college, actually. And I think the hang-up for me was I didn't really understand sin, right? And so I didn't really know why I needed Jesus, because I didn't really understand what sin was really about, and that I was a sinner, and that's why I needed Jesus. But I got involved in InterVarsity at college, and met some really neat people through that, and really learned a lot, and really accepted Jesus while I was in college.
Okay.
So the cool thing about the girl I was dating is that's Melissa, who I've been married to for 30 years.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So she's been with you through all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
She's been with the up and downs. That's awesome.
Yep.
Man. So do you remember the moment where you started to understand sin then? Since you were saying you didn't really understand it, is there moments or things that led you to really understand it? Was it just in InterVarsity or what was it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I got to know some people that just really were strong in their faith, and I would kind of share things that I kind of believed, which wasn't really on point from a biblical perspective. Mm-hmm. And in a very kind way, they would sort of say, well, actually, this is what the Bible says about that, right? And so it was a process. It didn't happen right away, but I just really started to understand that, the reason I needed Jesus is because I was a sinner, and he died for my sins, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you started to understand that, what were some things that kind of changed in your life, if any?
Well, I think I really started to understand that I can't do everything on my own, right? That I really needed God in my life, and it wasn't just about being a good person anymore, but that I really needed Him to kind of help me become the person that I was meant to be and created to be. And so I think that was a big part of kind of the learning that happened during that time. And then I started to really learn kind of the disciplines of the faith in terms of studying the Bible. InterVarsity really taught us a lot about how to study the Bible effectively, in prayer, right?
Yeah.
And having that relationship through prayer. And I think that really started to change me as well when I started to pray.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How did that change, I guess your relationship with Melissa started all of this, but I guess how has your relationship with Melissa pushed you to become closer to Christ, other than that initial? Yeah.
Well, she was patient with me, to be honest, and she kind of let me kind of go through that process of really understanding and learning, and I think in a very kind of gentle way, she would sort of share what she believed and what she understood to be the truth. And in all honesty, we were not dating the entire time through college. We had a few breaks along the way, and so that was kind of part of the story as well. I like to call it a love story because every love story has its challenges,
Ups and downs,
rather than a fairy tale.
Yeah.
but it all worked out in the end. So yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for this, by the way.
Yeah,
looks excellent.
Messed up the milk a little bit, but
Awesome.
oat milk's a little different.
Yeah, that's good.
So, what was I going to ask you? Yeah, I guess like you've talked a little bit about your personal journey. So, what about like your journey in the church, in the body of Christ, the church? Because you're on the board right now.
Yeah.
So, that I'm sure was a journey to even feel like you're ready to run for the board and stuff like that. So, kind of talk about your journey in the church.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll maybe back up really quickly. So again, I mentioned earlier we've been coming here for, I guess, 11 years now. And quick funny story, the very first Sunday we came here was called Biker Sunday. And I don't know if you've heard about that. That was before your time.
I've seen clips of it.
So we kind of found the church, on the internet and thought we'd check it out. And sure enough, there was all these Harley Davidsons in the church parking lot. And Pastor Dave was on stage, riding his Harley. And so we're like, this is a pretty cool church. We got to keep coming back here. This is different. So anyway.
That's awesome.
Big thing that drew us to the church, though, was the kids' programs at the time, because our kids were all, with us and in school, and just the great youth programs and things like that. And I would say the most important thing for us was getting involved in a small group. So Alan and Joel Susier were kind enough to invite us into their small group at the time. And that's how we really got to know people, really well. And we're still part of that same small group. There's been some changes with people in and out of that group, but we're still involved in that. So that's really been a big part of our growth at the church, is just developing those relationships through the small group primarily, and being involved, with the kids and the kids programs along the way. And it's been, an honor to be on the church board. I'll be wrapping that up in a couple of months here. So I'm finishing out my second year of the second term. Yeah.
So you got reelected even.
I was,
Such
yeah.
a good job that they reelected you.
They did.
Cool. What is church service? How has that in turn? So you start serving in the church because of your personal relationship with Jesus, but then how has that aided your personal relationship with Jesus too?
Yeah. Well, I think when you serve in the church, you're also being served in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think there's a blessing that comes with that.
Yeah.
And so I've definitely felt blessed just being able to lead our small group, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's really been very meaningful to me. So I think it's just really growing. You grow by serving as well, in terms of really seeing how God is at work in different people's lives.
Yeah.
And there's so many different areas to serve in, but I think in any area that you serve in, you really sort of experience God through that service.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What is some advice you would give to someone who just started going to church?
Yeah, I'd have to go back to that theme of the small group.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can be a little bit intimidating to jump into a small group sometimes. But I would say just kind of put yourself out there, introduce yourself to folks, let them know that you're interested in a small group. And I think if you express that interest, then you're going to quickly find, that people will invite you into different things they're involved with. And that'd be my biggest advice, I think, is just, be friendly, get to know people, and everyone here is very friendly. And I think they'll draw you in pretty quickly. So.
What is a tip that you would give to someone who is trying to bring more Jesus into their home or their family?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for us, at least, being around the dinner table has been a time where we really try and do that as an entire family. Mm-hmm. And, we always obviously, pray, but not just a blessing on the food, but how can I pray for you? Mm-hmm. And I've really tried to kind of ask that question. Yeah. Now it's just Melissa and me mostly, so I kind of ask her that sometimes. But I think really trying to, just spend time praying together as a family and really encouraging each other. And sometimes I say to the kids, look, we've got to kind of be everybody's cheerleaders and kind of build each other up. And sometimes we can kind of tease each other and things like that. But really, there's enough of that in the world that it's hard enough. Sure. So let's really pull together as a family and come together and pray for each other and do what we can to kind of help each other grow in their faith and grow closer to God.
Yeah, so, that's awesome. What is one mindset or characteristic that you feel like is transformed in you because of Jesus?
I think knowing and understanding that I can't do everything on my own, that it's really through God's power that things can happen.
Yeah.
I think also being patient and learning to wait on God. One thing that I've tried to do more in my prayer life is not just sort of talk about, kind of all my prayer requests and things like that, but sort of be quiet and listen and see what God has to say to me.
Yeah.
And it's not that I hear, this clear, distinct voice, right? But it's kind of what thoughts is God kind of prompting in me as I kind of spend time just kind of trying to listen to Him.
Good practice. How do you decipher between like God's thoughts and your thoughts in those times?
Yeah, I don't know. I think recognizing that God isn't going to ask me to do something that isn't aligned with what I know to be true about Him and what the Word says.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are things where it's like I'm not really excited about doing it, but I kind of know that's what I need to do or should be doing.
Yeah.
And so I think that comes from God.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example. Just pretty recently, about a week ago, I was really prompted to write a letter to the gentleman that led our InterVarsity in college, and we kind of exchanged Christmas cards once a year, but that was about it. And I need to write him a letter just thanking him for how much influence he had in my life, 30 plus years ago when I was in college. And so I think that was just something that God prompted me to do as an example.
Yeah.
Not somebody that I think about every day, but kind of came into my head. I'm like, I should do that. Awesome. And I think that could be very encouraging to him. So who knows kind of where he is or where things are at for him, but maybe there's a reason why, he needs to get a letter from me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's awesome. I've heard like in the idea of like taking every thought captive, that people talk about like how every thought comes with the decision to like accept it as truth or reject it as a lie from the enemy. And like it's kind of it was like a teen camp cliche message, but but it's good because I think you hit on this too, like in order to make that decision well, we have to know the voice of God, and we have to like know the word of God and characteristics of God.
Right.
And so I guess, do you have any practices that has, other than like, I guess probably just reading the Bible, but how do you know the characteristics of God, or how have you learned His personality over time?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think the Bible is the source of truth for that. So that's kind of the easy, obvious answer. I think also, you learn through other people around you who are Christians and have a strong faith, and kind of how God's worked in their lives, and you sort of see evidence of God through that.
Yeah, Pastor Dave talked about who's on your couch in a sermon series last year, and the people who are on your couch have like the influence in your life, but also you have to be careful about who's on your couch. You have to like evaluate. Right. Yeah, these are people who know God and want God's voice to be heard in your life, and so I think it's cool that you're talking about the people that you've had around you on your couch throughout your life, influencing you and helping you grow.
And I think also from my own experiences too, like you can probably identify with this, right? Like you could be going through kind of a tough time in life, and you're like, why is this happening? Or what's going on here? Like it doesn't make a lot of sense. But then, at least for me, oftentimes after I've kind of gone through that and kind of come out on the other side, I can look back to that time and say, that makes sense now. I understand how God grew me, how He taught me something through that. Yeah, and
it's that verse, all things work together for the good of those who love Him. I think it's Romans 8:28, but like, doesn't mean it's always good. The situation
not always easy.
Good.
Yeah, exactly.
Fun, or easy, but you can always look back and like learn, grow.
And it's clear, in the Word too, right, that life isn't always going to be perfect and easy, right? There is suffering and the hard times, but again, I think we grow, we learn from that, we become closer to God through those times.
Yeah, so I agree. Awesome. Well, I think this is all great stuff. Is there anything else you feel is on your heart to share?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you, and thank you for the coffee. And,
of course.
I would say if you ever invite anyone else to do this, definitely do it, because the coffee's great. So.
All right, cool.